In the 1970s, Miami had a major cocaine problem, with hundreds of kilos a week being imported and sold by various drug smugglers in the area, making vast amounts of money. But with vast amounts of money and drugs comes the need to defend your operation while also trying to take over the competition, and this brings horrendous violence. The police at the time did not have the resources to stop the cocaine from getting to Miami. With so many ways for it to be smuggled, they couldn't cover everything and relied heavily on confidential informants and surveillance operations to gather intelligence on shipments coming into the city. With the cocaine came a wave of violence as different groups of people smuggling and selling cocaine fought for territory and customers, all competing to take over the same illegal market. This led to kidnappings, torture, drive-by shootings, robberies, interrogations, money laundering, and murders. Hundreds of people were turning up dead or missing each year all over Miami due to these cocaine wars. A lot of the violence in Miami at the time was the work of a notorious woman known as the Black Widow, with a fearsome reputation, solving her disputes with murder. Her name was Griselda Blanco. Before we get too far into the video, if you enjoy scary, creepy and strange true stories, then our channel is perfect for you. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel. Born on the 15th of February 1945 in Cartagena, Colombia, she moved to Medellin, Colombia when she was 3. The area she moved to was considered a no-go zone by police, so surrounded by sex workers, drug dealers and people smugglers, Griselda would soon start to learn from these individuals on ways to make money. At 11, she helped to kidnap a boy from a well-off family hoping to collect a ransom for his return. Unfortunately, the boy's parents did not take the threat seriously, refusing to pay the ransom. Griselda picked up a gun and without a second thought she shot and killed him, foreshadowing the person she would later become. A few years later, Griselda met a much older Carlos Trujillo, a low-level people smuggler who made counterfeit passports. The two started a relationship, and during this time Carlos taught her everything he knew about smuggling and identity fraud. Marrying when she was 20 and having 3 children, Alex, Uber and Osvaldo, before Carlos suspiciously died of liver failure, leaving Griselda his small operation. Griselda then met and started a relationship with Alberto Bravo, a cocaine smuggler. After learning about Alberto's cocaine operation, Griselda realized the huge money-making potential of smuggling and selling cocaine, but not in Colombia. Alberto's smuggling operation was small scale, and Griselda had much bigger plans for it. She set her sights on America, thinking if she could get the cocaine to America, she could make millions. Alberto and Griselda then moved their headquarters from Medellin to New York, aiming to make a killing off the illegal drug trade. With many Colombian contacts selling cocaine in America, the pair already had their distribution network. All they needed to do was figure out a way to smuggle large amounts of cocaine into America. Firstly, Alberto would buy the cocaine from Bolivia or Peru, then transporting it over the unchecked border to Medellin, Colombia, before it would be repackaged in order for it to be smuggled to America. Griselda had the cocaine put cleverly inside bras padding so it looked natural, using women to wear the bras and transport the drugs into America. She would advise the women to flirt and play on their attractiveness to border guards in order to distract them, making it a little easier to successfully get the drugs through the airport. The women would land in New York, and from there the cocaine would be distributed out via Griselda and Alberto's established underground distribution network. This method of smuggling was very successful for the pair, each woman bringing a kilo of cocaine each trip they made. In New York, business was booming and the pair were smuggling in hundreds of kilos a week, making them millions. Alberto going back to Colombia to handle export, while Griselda stayed in New York to handle the selling and collection of money. Making $8 million a month, it was inevitable that different smuggling and selling groups would try and muscle in on their operation, and one of these groups was led by Pablo Escobar. Pablo was putting pressure on Griselda in New York and Medellin, making it hard for her operation to continue running smoothly. Griselda was not pleased, and this started a back and forth battle. Kidnappings, violence and murder started happening in America and Colombia from both sides, each trying to eliminate the competition. This is when Griselda ordered a hit in Medellin, where two men on a motorbike, one driving, the other shooting, committed a drive-by shooting, killing a man. This being the reason people say Griselda invented the drive-by shooting on a motorbike. At the same time, Griselda was hearing rumours that Alberto was having affairs back in Colombia and that he had been stealing money from the business, so she went to Colombia to confront him. Getting a jet from America to Colombia, then heading over to a pre-arranged meeting spot with a team of men. Alberto waiting at the arranged meeting place with his own group of men. The two groups met where a heated argument started about the rumours. Suddenly, Griselda went to her boot and grabbed a pistol she had hidden. At the same time, Alberto reached and grabbed his gun and both shot. Griselda shot in the stomach, Alberto shot in the head, dead before he hit the ground. A gun battle broke out between the two groups of people, with Griselda's people trying to get her to safety and to hospital. She managed to get to hospital, where she nearly died from her injury, but luckily for her, the doctors managed to keep her alive. With two dead husbands, one's definitely been killed by her, she gained the nickname the Black Widow. By this time, with all the cocaine being imported and the violence and murders that came with it, the DEA had started an investigation looking into the source of the cocaine and violence. The DEA had been investigating this case for a few years when they found a cocaine dealer in jail facing a lengthy sentence and managed to persuade him to become an informant for a shorter sentence. The information put the DEA on the trail of a distributor called Lila Parada, who they decided to set up a surveillance operation on. Using wiretaps, they listened in on conversations she was having. This was a task in itself, as the agents listening to the phone conversations had to speak fluent Spanish. Not only that, the conversations were spoken in code, so the agents had to also decipher the code being spoken. Despite that, two sisters' names kept coming up in conversations. The DEA tracked them down, and after tremendous pressure and an offer of witness protection, they got a name: Griselda Blanco. With the DEA getting closer, having her name, and Pablo taking over Medellin Airport, applying even more pressure to her operations, Griselda vanished into thin air. In 1976, more cocaine started flowing into Miami. With that came violence, areas being taken over, torture, kidnapping, shootings and murders, with a strange similarity to how Griselda operated. This made the DEA think she may be back and operating in Miami. A shocking act of violence was then committed when two known cocaine dealers were gunned down in a daytime shooting in a liquor store. The gunmen, showing no remorse for anyone using Uzis, they injured employees of the shop, shot the building as they were leaving, and shot across the parking lot. The police later found a van used in the shooting with body armor hung from the room and an arsenal of high-powered weapons. This became known as the War Wagon. Miami was rife with killings, people not worried about being caught or hurting innocent people. The police found it very hard to keep up with everything, and on top of that, the Colombians would always use aliases and fake IDs, so keeping tabs on them was almost impossible. Then in 1982, police respond to a house about a shooting to find the residents of the house tied up, tortured and shot. When the DEA looked at these cases, it confirmed to them Griselda was back. During Griselda's time in Florida, she is believed to have ordered and taken part in 200 murders on rivals, killing anyone who dared to cross her. She made so much money she is known as the first woman to make $1 billion off drugs. The DEA, now knowing Griselda was operating in Miami, found out she had 3 sons operating in America, and they managed to come across a Colombian dealer serving time for cocaine. This Colombian dealer knew the sons from Colombia. They offered to release him from jail if he would go undercover and try to gain intelligence on Griselda, which he quickly accepted. This man was called Jerry Gomez, and upon his release from jail, the DEA got him to set up a meeting with one of Griselda's sons, offering to launder money for them. Jerry was successful and met her son in Florida, where they discussed Jerry's proposition. The meeting went well, and Griselda's son even revealed that she travels between Miami and LA a lot, but despite this, Jerry and the DEA had no clue if they would hear back. The aim of this meeting was to get concrete evidence of her business in order to prosecute her, so the DEA would have to resist the temptation to arrest her on sight. A few tense weeks later, Jerry received a phone call from Griselda herself wanting to arrange a meeting, arranging to meet in a hotel in LA. Jerry was incredibly nervous as reality set in, and he realized the reputation of the woman he was about to meet. A woman who would only need a small reason to kill you. He knew if he was found out, he would be dead in an instant. The meeting went ahead with Jerry waiting in the hotel lobby for Griselda. The two then making their way to a room to conduct the meeting. Calm and collected, Griselda started the meeting. Jerry, on the other hand, could barely string sentences together, more than likely overcome with fear. Griselda could clearly sense this and quickly decided Jerry was not the kind of man she could trust with her money. Luckily, Jerry managed to somehow make it to the end of the meeting alive, and despite the operation being a complete disaster, they had managed to figure out the location and address of one of Griselda's distributors. After the address was raided, the DEA found a utility bill for another address, and after looking into the address, they decided they needed to set up surveillance around the address to see if it was Griselda's safe house. After stalking out the house for a while, they got a glimpse of Griselda inside. They quietly stormed the house, worried that if she escaped, she would vanish for years again. Moving through the house, clearing every room silently, the agents not knowing if Griselda would silently burst out of a room shooting, and with her reputation they didn't want to take any chances. They moved upstairs, checking each room until finally they found a shot Griselda alone, gun on the dresser, reading on a bed in a bedroom. The agents quickly arrest her, one kissing her on the cheek. Griselda asks what it's for, and he replies, "It's because I'm so glad to see you." Griselda and her 3 sons were arrested and charged by the DEA, her sons getting lengthy jail time. Griselda's trial was a little more complicated than her sons, as a witness in the case had been having phone sex with secretaries from the Miami-Dade attorney's office. The secretaries accepted money and gifts. This meant the credibility of the witness was put into question. Instead of getting the death penalty, Griselda got 20 years in jail. During her time in jail, her sons were deported back to Colombia, and after only being there a few weeks, 2 were killed. Griselda served her jail time, and on release she was deported back to Colombia, where she went back to Medellin. She lived here under an alias for years peacefully. September the 3rd, 2012, Griselda was buying meat from a shop. A man on a motorbike pulled up to the store. Jumping off, he walked up to Griselda and shot twice, once in the shoulder, then in the head. Calmly exiting the shop, jumping back on his bike and driving off, Griselda left dead on the floor. This man has never been identified. All we know is that Griselda's past had eventually caught up to her. Remembered as one of the most notorious drug lords to have ever lived, causing havoc in America and making billions in the process, being the first woman to do so, Griselda Blanco definitely left a lasting impression on the drug trade in America.